Welcome back, everybody. I'm Edwin.
And I'm Joseph.
And this is
Edwin and Joseph Talks.
So it's kind of, I don't want to say old news is slowly fading out, but as many of you know, the Amazon Rainforest, it's been burning, and for how long now?
I know last week it was about 3, almost 4 weeks. So for a little while, and the reason why I told Edwin, I still wanted to do a video on it is because the subject matter of why it's burning. Now, we'll get into some facts right now. That the Amazon produces 20% of our oxygen that we breathe. A lot of people call it that it's the nature's lungs.
Yeah, the lungs of Earth.
So that's a good margin. Secondly is the facts of why it's being burned. I think this is what got Edwin when we were talking about it. They're clearing out all the rainforests so they can put cattle farms there for cattle ranchers. Brazil supplies another about 20% of the world's beef to the world, mostly to like European nations and stuff like that. I know Scotland put a big trade boycott on all the beef that came from there and telling them, hey, you got to stop this. Now, there's a bunch of reasons why this is alarming. One, we need to breathe, of course.
And if you did your study, while you were in school with science and stuff, like trees and plants have a big part in us getting oxygen. It helps clean the air so we can get the oxygen we need to breathe and live.
Without those trees and plants, we don't have any oxygen, really. Second comes habitats. If you think of the animals that only live in that part of the world, and there's a lot from insects to animals, species that you cannot find in any other part of the world that are being destroyed right now. Now, the third thing that's alarming to me is whether you want to acknowledge global warming or not, which me and Edwin have stated, it's a very real thing.
It's real.
It's going to make it a lot worse because you're upping the greenhouse gases by the methane that the cows produce by a lot. So we got a lot of multiple factors going here. When I had first heard about the fires, this was another alarming thing. It took about 3 weeks before I started seeing coverage about this.
Yeah, I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks into the rainforest being on fire when I first even saw the feed on my Facebook.
Yeah. I'll try to pull up the picture as well as we're talking, so you can see how much of this has been set on fire. When I first thought about it, I thought maybe electricity hit.
I thought it was like negligence, like somebody was messing around out there, accidentally set it on fire.
And then I started researching and realized that it's during their dry season right now, and that loggers and ranchers are setting the fires. I was like, oh, that's not good.
And this is through order of their government. I don't know if it's a president or whatever they have out there, but he is the one who ordered for this to make room for all that.
And it's really pure greed. Basically, they know that they're producing a large number of the meat industry, specifically beef, to the world.
Which, kudos to Ireland for telling them, hey, this isn't the way to do it, taking a stand and not, pretty much putting a ban on any meat coming from there. If more countries were to do that, it might help them like waking up and stop setting the rainforest on fire.
Yeah. Last I heard, the government started to do a effort to put out these fires. A lot of people, a lot of countries were getting mad that they were doing it. If you look at the statistics, this year there's 80% higher in forest fires than their last year. That's
a lot.
Of course, I already mentioned 20% of the world's beef market. So what does that mean business-wise on them? They're producing 1.64 million tons of beef. That roughly comes out to $6.57 billion in revenue on their part. Now, you can look at it as a business standpoint, and I can say I get it. I don't agree with it.
Yeah, no.
It does not... That just comes down to greed of a government and the populace that's doing that.
Well, and not only the business aspect of it and the wrong way they're doing things, and I think a lot of people don't understand or choose not to understand as far as like what kind of impact that actually has on us. Because like we already mentioned how much of the oxygen it produces, but you had mentioned about the wildlife there, mm-hmm. and how it's it could or it will eventually kill it off.
Yep.
And I don't think people realize like how much of a domino effect nature has. Like once something happens, whether animals go extinct or like it's a domino effect, and it starts affecting the whole world eventually. And
it's actually, I'm thinking a movie that had to do something with this. I can't remember what it's called. It was one of my mom's favorite movies where there was two doctors. They were in the Amazon, and they found an ant. That there was a chemical in the ant that would basically cure cancer. But there was a logging company that was getting rid of the logs in their habitat. And basically they were trying to stop that, or else this species of ant that could only be found right there, which was in the Amazon, would be wiped out. My mom loved that movie. But it comes down to the same principles of there's only certain species of insects and animals that live in these areas. If they destroy those, we're just sending species extinct.
And certain species play a big part in our planet's health and being able to produce more life and all that. Like I don't think people realize that. Yeah. And it's like they always use the metaphor of like actually there was, I can't remember the documentary I saw it on, but there was they did a research where these deers ended up getting wiped out. And before they did, there used to be a big number of gray wolves in that area. It was out in the woods. There used to be a big number of gray wolves. Well, these deers ended up like dying out or something like that. And the wolves ended up dying out, and you rarely saw them. So they ended up preserving, like rescuing some of the deer, letting them kind of rebreed and repopulate, and they set them all out. And once they did that, the wolf population started kind of growing back in. And that's what I mean about the whole domino effect of everything. It's like people might look at it as like, oh, well, that's just one species that died out. Well, yeah, but then that one species could be a food source for another species, which could be, vital to this and end up being vital to us at the end.
The habitats of our ecostructures. Me and Animal, we're not scientists, but at the same time, we understand that you have specific animals in certain areas, and they play a key role in those areas. For us as humans, just to take a profitable gain that's going to destroy something that we might need for our whole global community, it's kind of a dick move, and it's
It is.
very unresponsible as humans in society, and it's kind of something that we got to reflect on. You know, me and Edwin were kind of talking, should we even do this video, because you know it's kind of past news by now.
It is.
But how many people realize that all these fires were caused by ranchers and loggers just to make a profit off of beef farming?
And we're not saying like beef farming is bad, you know, cattle ranches, but again, with people probably not knowing this is the reason, I don't think they know, like, the cattle, the gas they, you know, pass, it actually is harmful to our to our oxygen and stuff. Like it'll kill it out. It'll break up the ozone, and like we kind of need. With the rainforest is a big part of nature that we actually need around there. I mean,
You get rid of 20% of our oxygen maker. That's pretty big. Some people might, 20% is not that big, but when you get in the realm of something like that, that is big. Especially with, last time I looked, and this was 6-7 years ago, we were over 7 billion people.
yeah,
We are constantly growing as a global community. Huge factors. We're going to need that oxygen at some point.
and like
You
we
know.
said, you know, domino effect. So even though it might be a slow repercussion on us, you know, your kids, they'll end up growing with different kind of health problems and being born with different health problems because of the lack of oxygen that will eventually hit us because of the rainforest.
Yep. You know, this is something that I don't think is going to affect
It definitely won't immediately
Us.
affect us.
Now. I know a lot of people have said, like, with global warming and some of the stuff within 12 years from now, unless people really start taking it seriously, it's going to have a major effect on our ecosystem of the whole globe. But what's happening right now isn't going to majorly affect us, like boom, right now. But it's going to, in the next decade, we're going to start seeing it.
Yeah.
You know, I still wanted to do this video. Like I said, this is kind of old news. I need to do some research to see at the state of where they're at. You know, if these fires have been put out. Are they trying to maybe even try to replant some of this? I don't know. But this is more of an awareness as, you know, humans on our earth. We've done some pretty stupid things.
We've damaged the oceans. We've littered parks. You know, the ocean again is just littered. Oil spills.
You know, we're ravaging the earth. And a lot of it is for
Stupidity, honestly.
that, but it's two things. You either see sport somehow. If you look at, like, all the buffaloes, we almost destroyed all buffaloes in America at one point of our time. And two, greed. Corporate greed is a big thing. And hopefully y'all watch this, research more on some of these topics, and take a good look about how us as a whole, as humans, are
Destroying our home, pretty much. I mean, at the end of the day, this planet is shared by all the animals, by us. Like, it's our home, and all we're doing is destroying it. You know, we're not trying to sound like a bunch of activists. We're not trying to. It's just the truth. Like, you know, it's our home.
So I just want everybody, our watchers, to kind of have more of awareness, a global awareness, even a community awareness of where we're at, and hopefully some changes will happen. You know, if you live in an area that doesn't have many trees, in fact, right down the street, they just cut a bunch of trees down. Why, I don't know. They provided really good shade to that area. They weren't a nuisance. I don't know why they're cut down, but say if you have a neighbor, or you, or your next neighbor, or whatever produces, plant a tree, plant a fruit tree, give away the fruit to people. There's a lot of good ways that we can benefit each other and our planet at the same time. It's just awareness, everybody. Think about these issues. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications.
Plant a tree, pick up some trash, and just take care of our home, people.